Hey guys, what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight is going to be TV show content. So back in the beginning of the year, I made a resolution to myself to go over every TV show I've been watching during my monthly wrap-ups, but unfortunately, I fell off that bandwagon back in July. So here we are in the month of December going over all my TV shows that I have been watching since the month of July. I actually have only 6 TV shows to talk about, and only 3 of these are completed. The other 3 are still ongoing, so hopefully this video isn't going to be too long, but I do love to hear myself talk. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So the first of my completed shows, I completed this back in July, and that was Stranger Things Season 4. If you've been anywhere online this year, you know all about the hype of this show, and I jumped onto that bandwagon so fast. I actually rewatched the first 3 seasons in preparation for this one, and thank God I did that because I forgot so many things. And y'all, this season was on some horror movie shit. This season was top notch with the graphics. I was a little worried when they announced like each episode cost like $30 million to make, and I don't know, I was expecting some corny shit, some shit graphics, but they pulled through. Each episode looks like it cost $30 million. Just the way our villain would kill people was so good. If you don't really like horror imagery, I wouldn't particularly recommend this season. I don't want to say it's the horror of all horror. Like, I wasn't scared, but I definitely was unsettled watching some of these scenes, and I was kind of looking at it like cringing with my mouth agape. Yikes, especially with the way that first episode ended, the first episode of this season. Will is my son, Lucas is my son, Max might as well be my daughter. I cried so hard for her. Episode 4, if you know, you know. I sobbed multiple times throughout this season, especially with Max, and especially that last episode. That last episode, I was a hyperventilating mess. And despite all these episodes being over an hour long, they didn't feel long. Like those last 2, that very last episode was over 2 hours long. I think the last 2 episodes, so part 2, was a total of like 4 hours. But despite being so long, it didn't feel long as I was watching it. Like an hour and 30-minute long episode genuinely felt like a 40-minute episode. And that was because of how much fun I was having with the season. So to me, the pacing was fine. The pacing was great actually. Kept me on my toes the whole time. Didn't drag at all. And despite these episodes feeling shorter than they were, nothing to me felt rushed. And the music choices in the season were great. I will say, Running Up That Hill did not make my top 5 on Spotify, but it did make the top 100. And like the music at the end, the way they incorporated the theme song with like an orchestra for that last episode, stupendous. Love to see it. Love to hear it. I will say though, I actually did predict some stuff. It's kind of shocking watching some of my favorite channels react to this season because they weren't predicting things the way I was. Like in the beginning of the season, there's this like one twist with a character, and I knew that was a red herring like the whole time, and it kind of shocks me that some of the reaction channels I'm subscribed to didn't see that right away. And I predicted who the villain was going to be. I predicted that twist, that intertwining right away. The moment the actor was introduced, I figured he was going to be the villain. There was like one teeny tiny part of that story that blew me away. But yeah, the majority of the villain's backstory I did predict. However, that didn't really taint my entertainment value for this season. But yeah, this season was insane. I'm glad like the maturity of the show is growing along with its character. So yeah, it's still aimed for teenagers because our characters are teens. However, this season blew me away. Just blew it right out of the water. I like when shows mature with their audience, and that's what this is doing. But yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. It was hard to talk about without spoiling things. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't know what you're doing. So the next completed show on this list I actually completed in November, and that is Over the Garden Wall. This is about 2 brothers who find themselves lost in this fantastical forest, and they are trying to find their way home. A bunch of my coworkers recommended this to me. This is actually a trade-off. I got a veterinarian that I work with. I got her to watch Spy X Family. She told me to watch this one, so this was our little exchange. And in the end, I thought it was cute. I actually watched it in one sitting. It's only 10 episodes long. Each episode is less than 12 minutes long. It's a Cartoon Network show, so I am a little too old for it. I felt like that kind of tainted my entertainment value just because of the way a lot of people were talking about this show. They're like, it's one of the greatest things ever. I didn't like it as much as everyone else did, but then again, I also did watch it in one sitting. It does have some really catchy music. It was actually really neat to see all these things come together and see how important all the little details were throughout the episodes. The episodes are going to feel episodic. However, once that ending comes along, you're going to see how it is all connected and how every little detail was important. Even the simplest lines of dialogue were important, but again, you don't realize that until the end. And it definitely fits the fall vibe because a lot of people were telling me not to watch the show until Halloween. I watched it like 2-3 days after. I mean, there's a whole episode of just like pumpkins and skeletons. There's ghost stories. There's a monster chasing after them. But not only that, but it's because of like the color palette of the show. The color palette has a lot of warm colors and just the vibe of the show. There's something very calming and nostalgic about it, which I feel like fits the fall winter vibe especially. I did really like the art style. The art style reminds me of the old-fashioned cartoons. So along with the color scheme, that's probably like another reason why this felt so like an older show and made me and gave me this nostalgic feeling. I also really like the moral of the show. The moral really did stick out to me. It's basically love triumphs fear, because our characters do have to overcome some flaw that they have in every episode. And despite our brothers seeming like they don't really get along, every episode does show that they do truly love each other. And yeah, despite not liking it as much as everyone else seems to, I still think it's an enjoyable show. It made me feel so warm. Warm and comforted. And that's what I want from a TV show that I watch in one sitting, curled underneath my blanket, the lights are dimmed down, I have a hot drink. It's just a good show to watch on a cool fall day. And the last show that I completed in 2022 was Wednesday. I have been looking forward to the show ever since it was announced like 2-3 years ago. I was an Addams Family girl growing up. I was obsessed with Wednesday, especially Wednesday, specifically Wednesday. I was obsessed with Wednesday as a kid. I wanted to be her so bad, and to this day, I still hope my marriage is as great as Morticia and Gomez's. So when this was announced, I was all for it. So yeah, if you haven't guessed, this show is about Wednesday Addams of the Addams Family. She gets expelled from her public high school and is sent to a boarding school and basically becomes an amateur detective. Things are kind of amiss and she takes it upon herself to solve these mysteries. And y'all, this is like one of my shows of the year. I am absolutely obsessed with how this turned out. I think Jenna Ortega did a wonderful job as Wednesday. Her deadpan was on point. Her lack of a smile was on point. And just watching her interact with the other characters was great as well. And just kind of how they all played off each other. When it comes to the Addams Family itself as characters, I have a lot of emotions. Like, first of all, can we talk about Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia? She looks fabulous. I absolutely love this. I really like the look of Luis Guzman as Gomez. What's weird is that I thought they did a great job with their roles as individuals, but as a couple, I don't think their chemistry was where I wanted it to be. Like, they were fine, but I kind of wanted more of the vibe that I would get from like the original TV show of the 60s and obviously the movies from the 90s. Actually, what's weird is that there is a flashback of Morticia and Gomez as teenagers, and I thought the teenagers had better chemistry together than Louise and Catherine did. I think the guy who played Uncle Fester did a great job. I don't really have an opinion on Lurch because he kind of just stood there. The grandma wasn't in this at all. I'm actually not a huge fan with the way Pugsley was portrayed, because Pugsley is kind of a wimp in this, and in other adaptations of the Addams Family, he's not much of a wimp. He's as whimsical and witty as Wednesday is. So that was a little weird. And Thing, girl, this show got me crying over a hand. And I'm going to leave it at that. And this show also introduced some other characters, and I thought they all did a great job. I love the contrast between Wednesday and her roommate Enid. I loved Bianca Barkley. I thought she was a great addition. I actually really liked her competitiveness, and I really liked her arc throughout the show. I didn't trust a single man in this show, and except for Eugene. Eugene was the only one I trusted, but the rest I was suspicious of through the whole thing, and by the end of it, I was right to be. There was really only one I shouldn't have trusted, but I didn't trust any of them except Eugene. So Tim Burton was one of the producers of the show, and I really liked seeing what he was inspired by, because he incorporated things from the original comics. It mentioned Morticia's maiden name, which I forgot was Frump, but then I was watching some episodes of the original 60s show, and they mentioned her maiden name. Like, I thought, for some reason watching this show, I thought he made that up, but no, he got that from the original show. Some of Wednesday's dance is actually very similar to her dance in the original 60s show. And there's just other things spread throughout the show where he absolutely took a lot of influence from the 90s movies. And speaking of the 90s movies, Christina Ricci, who played Wednesday in those movies, she is Wednesday's teacher in this, and I thought it was really endearing watching her interact with Jenna Ortega. And I loved the twist in the show. I don't know what I was expecting, but this show is definitely better than whatever I was expecting. I was screaming at my TV during that last episode. I swear to you, I thought I had this whole show pinned out. I thought I predicted who the villain was. I thought I predicted all the twists just for them to play into what I predicted, and I thought I was right. And then I realized I still had like an episode and a half to go, so I was very confused, and they just turned it around. They backstabbed me, they stabbed my back, and then twisted the knife. I felt so betrayed, but oh, I love it. I love it. And of course, I was like, oh, maybe this came out of left field. But of course, when thinking about it, it absolutely did not come out of left field. The foreshadowing was there. So despite the foreshadowing being there, and they still caught me off guard, and I have to give props for when a show or a movie or book or what have you does that. I'm scared of going into spoiler territory, so I'm trying to leave it right there, but God, what a good show. And it's another funny thing is too, I was kind of disappointed with the first episode, and I got real scared with the first episode because I thought all that excitement was for nothing. Because admittedly, I thought the first episode was a little slow, and I kind of wasn't feeling Wednesday as a character at first. I thought she was a little too mean. But then it hit me, I'm also watching the first episode of a TV show. So like 5 minutes into it, I figured, you know, she's going to have some massive character development. Something's going to happen that's going to punch me in the gut, and that's exactly what happened. And I loved her character development in this show. The season ended, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Season 2 when, and when I tell you my special interest is slowly creeping back for the first time since I was like 12, 13 years old. What then? And the weirdest part about all of this is just watching people on Twitter say the original Wednesday Addams is in this TV show, because I know Christina Ricci was impeccable in the role, and I know she's the person who kind of created the Wednesday of the modern age. It's just so weird officially being in the era where people think the 90s movies are the originals and don't know that there was a TV show in the 60s and then a cartoon in the 70s and then a cartoon in the 90s as well, and that there were comics in the 40s and 50s. We live in some wild times. So that is it for the shows I completed, but like I said, there are 3 shows that are still ongoing for me. 2 of them are currently airing. One has been completed, I'm just only halfway through it. So the first one I want to talk about is, of course, Spy Family. As of filming this, I think there's only 2-3 episodes left of this season. I'm still absolutely obsessed with this story. If you don't know what this is about, it's about a spy named Lloyd Forger. He needs to create a fake family in order to complete this mission. So he convinces a woman named Yor to marry him, and then he adopts a girl named Anya. However, Yor doesn't know that Lloyd is a spy. Lloyd doesn't know that Yor is an assassin. Neither of them know that Anya is a telepath, but Anya, being a telepath, knows everything about them. However, she is only 4 years old and can't fully comprehend her situation. It gives rom-com vibes without being a rom-com necessarily, just because it is a comedy, and you know, our couple is married. However, it is a fake marriage. They're not technically romantically involved, although it's like, given how these stories go, it's highly suggested it's going to happen. And I'm just obsessed with this show. There's no major plot twists or anything. It's a slice of life anime. A lot of goofy shit happens, but I'm here for it. I've been reading and watching so many like dark stories that have plot twist after plot twist. Sometimes I just want to watch something that's easy to watch, and that is what this is. And it's just cute. Lloyd and Yor, despite not being like official, they are goals to me. They respect one another. Lloyd always comes to Yor's defense. And same thing for her. She always comes to Lloyd's defense. She's ready to protect him. She's slowly falling in love. And I hope it's one of those stories. I'm getting the vibe it's going to be, but I could also just be projecting. I hope it's one of those stories where the woman falls in love first, but the man falls harder, because I am a sucker for those. And it's happening. I could tell Yor is falling in love faster than Lloyd is, but when Lloyd falls in love, ooh, it's gonna be so good. And they work for like opposite sides. Lloyd works for the west, Yor works for the east. And I know the last arc is going to be Yor assigned to kill Lloyd. I just wonder how that vibe's going to work out, because right now it's a very romantic comedy type of vibe, but is it going to take a dark turn, or is it going to be hilarious like Mr. and Mrs. Smith style? I don't know. The anticipation is killing me because I know the manga is still ongoing as well. But no, it's not ending anytime soon. But I just want them to kiss. I want them to hold hands and I want them to kiss. That's all I want. I am absolutely obsessed with this show still, as you could tell. And I need a Lloyd Forger in my life. And I need that Lloyd Forger to propose to me with a grenade pit. I will not accept anything less. Another ongoing anime I'm watching is called Chainsaw Man. This takes place in a universe where there are different types of devils. The stronger the fear of said devil, the stronger that devil becomes. One day he becomes this chainsaw devil. He basically gets taken in by this woman named Makima and he has to join the public safety. Public safety kills off these devils. And it's a whole thing. And like, y'all, this show is so fucking weird. Girl, see, our main character gets everything he wants within the first 2 episodes. So for the rest of the story, it's just him frolicking. I don't want to say the rest of the story. We're only like 9 episodes into it as of filming this, and obviously more shit and character development's going to happen. But then for like the next 3 to 5 episodes after that, it was kind of just him frolicking and fucking off and doing whatever he wanted to do. I mean, there is a scene that's like a solid 2-3 minutes long of him fondling someone's boobs. I mean, good for you. That was one of his goals, so good for you. But at the same time, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, for the first 5 episodes, I didn't know if I particularly liked the show, and yet I found myself seated every Tuesday, if that tells you anything. And I'm actually glad I stayed seated, because like I said, as of filming this, there's 9 episodes out already. And it was getting better. But I decided that I am beefing with this show because one of my favorite characters got killed off already. And I already got a manga spoiler because, of course, and my all-time favorite character, who I wanted to talk about but now I can't because I'll be spoiling it for you guys, my all-time favorite character in the show is going to be killed off. So I'm beefing with this show. I never want to watch it again, but I will be seated for episode 10. Despite the story, the art style in the show is pretty cool. I could tell Denji, when he's in chainsaw mode, he is animated with CGI. But it's so good how it's interwoven with the traditional 2D animation. There's a lot of rotoscoping in this as well. And it's like fascinating to watch. I cannot take my eyes off the screen. And then another thing I do like about the show too is that typically with anime, seasons will have a different theme song and a different ending song. But with Chainsaw Man, like, yes, this season has the same opening song, but each episode has its own ending song and its own art style too, and that is pretty cool. The most recent one just rubbed it in my face that one of my favorites got killed off, and I'm not okay with that. I have not forgiven them for that. Oh, and also, I will say this show has one of the most fascinating characters I've ever come across, and that is Makima. I am like kind of obsessed because I clearly knew she was evil the moment she walked on screen, but it's so, at first, it's just so subtle. Her manipulation tactics are so subtle that even I was almost falling for them at first. I would catch on pretty quickly, but then I caught myself falling for them, catching on again, falling for them once again, catching on again. It was just like a never-ending cycle. Like, she comes across nice and caring, but I always have to think about it for a second to realize that she's not nice and caring. She is in fact grooming our main character, Denji, but it's just... And like the voice actress too, because she's part of it, because she, like, Makima in this has a very high-pitched voice, and she kind of speaks in almost a whisper, and she's always smirking, but it's like a slight smirk. So the character design, the vocals, something about this character is just so fascinating to me, and like, I want to hate her, but I'm also kind of obsessed with her as a character. Like, I do hate her. I get bad vibes from her. Characterization-wise, the author did such a good job with this. I'm fascinated. It's so fascinating to watch, and I'm excited to see how her character arc is going to progress. I'm also interested to see how Denji and Power's dynamic is going to progress, because like, people say they're like siblings, and I could see it. But he was also fondling her boobs, and I've seen some other manga panels where they're in the bathtub together, the way they're cuddling with one another. I mean, I don't have siblings, but all my friends who do have siblings, none of them are doing that. So, I'm intrigued. I know a lot of people in the manga, from what I was reading, I don't know how true this is, but from what I was reading, a lot of people in the manga community kind of jump down your throat if you ship the two of them together, and because they'll say shit like, oh my god, they're like siblings, you shouldn't ship them, that's weird. But like, what siblings at least shouldn't be, they're not fondling each other's boobs, they're not like in the bathtub cuddling naked. I don't know. So I'm very interested to see how that dynamic's going to progress. Again, like, these characters are so weird, but I'm so fascinated by this. I'm seated every Tuesday. I can't look away. And as of filming this, I think there's only 3 more episodes left, so I'm so curious to see how this season's going to end. And the last TV show I want to talk about is another anime. It is Tokyo Ghoul. This has a total of 4 seasons, and I have just finished season 2. This takes place in a universe where ghouls run amok. People are scared of them because they can easily disguise themselves as humans. However, they eat humans, and then one day our main character Kaneki has an organ transplant and he becomes half human and half ghoul. So I read the manga. I read the first part in 2020 and I read Tokyo Ghoul Re in 2021. I'm very disappointed with how this is going. I went into this knowing that season 2 was going to be anime original, but I'm still like not impressed with season 1 either. Like, it was okay, but some things were weirdly changed. There's like a whole training session with Kaneki and Toka that was skipped over in the anime. There's a whole section where Kaneki and Toka go to CCG, which is like the police force that kills off the ghouls, and they have to go through this machine that tests if you are a ghoul or not because of the RC cells. So Toka can't walk through it because the alarms would sound off, but there's a whole thing of Kaneki walking through it and nothing happening. And because that goes to show how despite being half ghoul, he's still different. Still, part of him is still human, and that fucks with him a little bit. But then they also changed some plot points around, which was really strange. The whole Tsukiyama arc happens before Hinami's mom is killed off, but in the manga it's flipped. Hinami's mom is killed off first in the manga, and that's what makes Toka so jaded towards humans. So that's why when the Tsukiyama arc happens and Kimi tells her she's beautiful, that's why it fucks her up a little bit, because she's so jaded. But that doesn't make sense in the order the anime did it. So that was really weird. They really flubbed that up. And the whole I am a ghoul scene, that's supposed to be so climatic in the manga, and it is, and the artwork's beautiful. But it was anticlimactic in the anime, like the artwork, like that's another thing. I do agree with a lot of manga readers. I don't feel like the art transferred well in the anime. Granted, the author's art style is probably next to impossible to adapt because a lot of it does get intricate, but it's still, I don't know, I feel like they still could have done more. Like, reading the manga, like, Kaneki was already so tortured at that point. I can imagine him screaming with his voice hoarse, screaming out, I am a ghoul, whereas in the anime he kind of just says it while staring blankly at the screen. Weird, I don't like it. And of course, season 2, anime original, didn't make any sense to me because in the anime, so in the manga, there's a whole cult of ghouls and they're very anti-human, want to kill off the humans. So in the manga, Kaneki goes rogue. He leaves Antaiku, which is the coffee shop, but he doesn't join the cult because, again, he wants the 2 species of human and ghouls to coexist. However, in the anime, he does join the cult, which I feel like goes against what his morals were and goes against his goal. And they left out the whole lab arc, which I thought was important because that's basically where it's revealed that the organ transplant wasn't an accident, it was all on purpose. And they also missed out on the fact that Rize's still alive. With the way the anime does it, she's not alive. They never show her again after season 1. The anime changed Akira's reaction to Amon's death, and I thought that was criminal. I thought it was way too out of character. I'm also just salty because the way her reaction was drawn in the manga was just beautiful. Also, the huge plot twist at the end of this arc in the manga was left out in the anime. So in the anime, there's that Owl 2.0, and it's like, okay, whatever. But in the manga, it's revealed that Owl 2.0 is Ito. And not only is it Ito, but then you find out that Ito is Yoshimura's daughter, because when she leaves the owl's gear, she says, "Hi, Daddy." And then not only is it Ito, not only is it revealed Ito is Yoshimura's daughter, but it's revealed that this is Kaneki's favorite author who makes an appearance multiple times throughout this manga. And it was so funny because I remember when Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe was watching it, because she was watching the anime as I was reading the manga and we talked about it, and I remember asking her, I'm like, oh, did you recognize who the Owl 2.0 was? This poor woman had no idea what I was talking about, and it didn't make sense to me until watching this anime. That's when I had the epiphany and I was like, oh my god, no wonder she didn't know who I was talking about. She didn't see it at all. And that's a huge plot twist because I know they bring that into season 3 and 4. I can't imagine being an anime only watching this because how is season 3 going to make any sense after watching season 2? And it's just so weird because sometimes I read animes only's like reviews and they'll say how the story fell off the deep end. Season 3 they pulled shit out of their ass, and it's like, well no. Season 3 makes sense with the way the manga tells the story, but because the anime went the original route and then season 3 they went back to canon, that's why it doesn't make sense to you. But I promise you, if you read the manga, it's going to make total sense. And that's the other thing too. In this anime, Kaneki doesn't lose his memory, or it's not shown losing his memory, whereas in the manga, this arc literally ends with Akira at her dad's grave, and then this guy who looks like Kaneki goes up to her and says, "Hi, I'm Sasaki." And that tells the reader, oh my god, he lost his memory. And that's why in season 3, he has no idea who the fuck he is. So yeah, I just like spoiled a bunch of shit for y'all. So this is very anger inducing. I'm very mad with how season 2 turned out. And I know I'm like late to the party because this anime came out so long ago. But, like, I have to vent out my frustrations. However, there were a few things I did like. First of all, the soundtrack of this show. The OST is breathtaking. I've added a bunch of the songs to my playlist. I could listen. That is the one good thing of the show. The OST. The OST is beautiful. If there ever is a remake of this anime, I hope they keep this OST. Toka screaming at Kaneki broke my heart. Juzo screaming when Shinohara, is that his name? Why am I forgetting his name? But Juzo screaming when that all happened, chills. I actually teared up a bit. I wanted to cry so hard watching that. In the visual of Kaneki holding Hide's presumably dead body as Unravel plays in the background and he's just walking that whole song and everyone lets him walk. Despite that not being in the manga, that visual was beautiful to watch. There was something just so bittersweet about it, and I think it perfectly symbolized how Kaneki truly does care for everyone. So despite it being anime original content, it was a great way to show some symbolism. And yes, I will still be watching seasons 3 and 4, although I am not really looking forward to how that's gonna go, because I heard it is, despite it going back to the manga, despite it being back to canon content, it is incredibly rushed. So that is it for the end of this video. I ended up talking a lot more than I thought I would. Apparently I get really excited for TV shows, despite there only being 6 to talk about. Let me know down below any of your thoughts about these TV shows, and then if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe, y'all know the drill, and without further ado, I'm gonna peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao a tutti.